Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson, and welcome back to the Ben 10 Retrospectives. And today, we're going to be looking at episode 34 of the original Ben 10 series, Super Alien Hero Buddy Adventures, and I don't like this episode. I don't. I really, honest to God, don't, which is kind of surprised me, because in my past vlogs, even when I've kind of found the episode to be mediocre at best, I haven't really disliked it, with maybe the Galactic Enforcers coming in second. I think that maybe, but okay, actually, maybe I didn't. Maybe I did. I think, yeah, maybe I didn't. Maybe I didn't like that episode. But I'm getting off topic. I'm talking about this one. I might talk about the Galactic Enforcers later in relation, but I might as well just talk about the plot. In the episode, Ben and Gwen are traveling around in this studio called Galactic. I don't know. I wasn't paying attention to the name. But, and while they're there, before coming here, Ben was made aware of the existence of a new television show called Super Alien Hero Buddy Adventures, which very clearly is ripping him off, as pretty much all three of the main characters are crappy cartoon knockoffs of Wildmutt, Forearms, and Heat Blast, and as such, Ben is relatably ticked. So, Ben wants to find the animator and make him and kind of give him a piece of his mind. While at the same time, the studio makes this show also makes a show for one of Ben's favorite superheroes, Kangaroo Commando, and Ben wants to go there and meet him, watch him in action, yada yada yada. He just wants to meet his hero, and so while he's there, he does manage to meet them, but there's a rival, and he meets the animator whose name is not, yeah, Tim Dean. Yeah, that's his name, Tim Dean. He meets Tim Dean, and okay, here's kind of actually there is something I like. Tim Dean is voiced by Josh Keaton, and Josh Keaton does a very good job making him this swarmy jackass who just who's kind of full of himself. Like, and what's even kind of funny is how Ben confronts Tim Dean about him stealing his stuff from all the alien heroes in the news, which is something this series doesn't really touch on that often, strangely enough. But when he confronts it, he just tells Ben prove it, and then just orders his mascots to take Ben away. Which again, so that's a plus there. But so Ben decides to go alien mess with him, but he sees Kangaroo Commando, and he sees what looks like Kangaroo Commando in danger. Only when Ben goes to intervene, it turns out it's a stunt show. So Ben tries making things worse, almost hurts these audience members. So Kangaroo Commando attacks him, and they suddenly get into a fight, and it attracts an audience. And Ben realizes that he's kind of doing this just to get more attention, while Kangaroo Commando is Kangaroo Commando is just using this as an opportunity. It just thinks that Ben was sent there by Tim Dean, and so after he beats Ben, it's a success, and we learn that the actor's name is actually Abel North, which is kind of amusing, since it's an obvious homage to Adam, nice homage to Adam West, but again, no. But of course, we see more venom between. Hold on, there. We see more venom between him and Tim Dean. Ben, of course, is on Kangaroo Commando's side, since Tim Dean ripped off his aliens, and Kangaroo Commando is one of his favorite heroes. But he decides to go ride on a roller coaster with Kangaroo Commando the ride. But while on it seems to break down, and coincidence of all coincidences, Kangaroo Commando comes in himself and saves Ben and Gwen. Ben goes forearms to assist him, and Ben offers his help, but Kangaroo Commando says he doesn't want help. And in the destruction, he says he coincidentally finds an animator's glove, and of course people assume that it's Tim Dean, even though it's a studio theme park, so odds are there might be other animators besides him there. Global Studios. Yes, that was it. Global Studios. I think that was it. I think that was what it was called. Global Studios. But of course, Ben is more than willing to let Tim Dean take the fall. But when Tim Dean is almost brought away, because what Gwen notices that it was a right-handed animator's glove, and Tim Dean draws his stuff left-handed. So they all realize it's a setup. Gwen is the acting intelligently and realizing this is all a setup, so they follow Abel North because it was his ride and he's the one that came in to save everyone. And they find him talking to himself, but they don't know what's going on. But next time they see him, he sent is when it. But as they're wandering around, just kind of discussing what's going on, the Global Studio is about to show another episode of Super Alien Hero Buddy Adventures, but it's suddenly the connection is interrupted as it shows Abel North being hung over a vat of chemicals. So Ben goes alien to go save him, but before he can, suddenly Kangaroo Commando comes in and kidnaps Tim Dean. Ben doesn't know what's going on. They both go through. He manages to find Abel North and Tim Dean, who are both now hanging over vats of chemicals, both unaware, with Tim Dean unaware of what the heck's going on. Ben included, but after going through all these death traps, because it's pretty much a stunt house with all these machines and animatronics, which is a pretty fun scene. Ben and Gwen manage to save Abel North and Tim Dean, and they manage to find out who's the one responsible for this, and it turns out that the villain of this is Abel North's brother, Kane. Twin brother, actually, because the only big difference is that he's got an evil mustache, so you know he's evil, and he's the bad one, yada yada. And it turns out the reason he's going nuts is because his brother is the one that's been taking all the credit, because earlier his brother said he made all his own special effects and gadgets, and but in reality it was Kane behind all that. And the reason he's after Tim Dean isn't because his show knocked off their show. I'm guessing, I'm kind of actually with the fact that his brother stole his stuff. Maybe he'd be glad it's off the air. He's actually angry because apparently Super Alien Hero Buddy Adventures was Kane's idea and Tim Dean stole it. So he wants them both. So he wants his brother and him dead. So he manages to escape, tying up both Tim Dean and Abel and his brother. Ben manages to follow him to the top of a roof. They get into a tussle. The Omnitrix times out, so it looks like Ben's screwed, but Abel comes in, takes out his brother, and the episode is Kane being hauled away while, oh my god, I just realized that the pun, it's Kane and Abel, get it? Huh? Get it? Twin brothers, one's Kane, one's Abel, get it? Oh god, I just realized that right now. But anyway, Abel completely ignores Ben as he and Tim Dean make up, even though they just met what I assume is a real superhero to them. I say assume because maybe Abel's a real superhero. I'll get to that in a second. And then Max comes in because through this whole episode, the rust bucket's been broken down, so he's been off in a repair shop. So he's been off getting repairs for it. So what do I not like? I'm going to talk about that right now, because I kind of want to get this over with. Well, for one thing, I think the plot is kind of dumb. Ben does get more into his fanboy moments and his hero worship in this case, which, again, kind of makes sense. Which, in some cases, makes sense. He's 10, and Kangaroo Commando was one of my favorite heroes, so of course he'd be siding with him and all this stuff. But then when it comes down to he's very much in denial, and Gwen, while she's not technically wrong in her suspicions, for some reason, Ben is just completely in denial, even though there's all these strange things, even to the point. And then here's one other big criticism is the fact that is just kind of the rivalry between Abel and Tim Dean, as really their rivalry kind of feels dumb, and it's just sort of the whole thing. Pretty much jealous brother. They're sabotaging the competition. They decide to do just a rivalry. For some reason they don't like each other. And they're both kind of jerks in their own regards. Abel's not a total jerk, but Tim Dean really is an a-hole. Like, he throws Ben out, which you can kind of make the argument Ben was disrupting him, but the plot of this paper thing, and there's really nothing there for a rivalry for some reason. Why? I don't really understand why they don't like each other. Even Tim Dean says later that Kangaroo Commando was a major inspiration for his work, even though he went to him and called him out and pretty much declared war. They attacked each other, and Ben really is being one-sided in the. And okay, back to my original complaint. Ben is so quick to defend Kangaroo Commando that he's actually willing to let Tim Dean be arrested for making his dumb cartoon of him. Which, okay, he stole your stuff, kid. But does that mean he can go to jail? I mean, really? When Gwen points out the fact that the glove is right-handed and that it wouldn't have been Tim Dean, Ben is angry with her for it. Which, okay, Ben can be bratty, but this is a guy who almost got hauled away, man! Seriously, I know you're 10, but seriously, you're the superhero. Your name's in the title of the show. Be a hero, for crying out loud. You care about people. I'm sorry, I'm going off on a tangent. I'm already getting worked up over a small little episode. And then another thing that I really don't like is the twist. I don't like it. It's very much out of left field. Like, he has Abel has an evil brother named Cain with the Cain and Abel, which kind of annoys me. I hate pun names. I really I don't like puns. I don't hate them, but I don't like them either. But just the Cain is never seen or mentioned before. I don't think he's ever insinuated at, and you kind of think that maybe Ben is right in his regard, but I think it actually would have been interesting if it turns out his hero actually was the villain, which it's actually done. This sort of thing is done again in Ultimate Alien, and admittedly, it's actually done. It actually is done better, as the villain in there is a hero Ben worshipped as a kid, and yet now he turns into a villain. So there is a bit of a broken pedestal there. But the fact that they just can't. But in this case, Cain is never alluded to at any other moment in this cartoon, in the episode. We never hear mention of him, and when he first appears, even Ben is like, I should have known who this is, so he knew that he knew that Kangaroo Commando had a brother. And then there's another problem. And then at the end of the episode, Tim Dean and Abel North are just like, whatever. They don't care that Ben is a superhero for some reason. They meet a real superhero and he's a kid. They should be thankful, and that's another thing. People seem to think that Ben is Tim Dean's crappy knockoff characters. There's one scene when the Kangaroo Commando roller coaster ride is going down, Kangaroo Commando saves these two kids. Ben comes in as Forearms, saves one. One kid thinks he's the Forearms analog called Handy Buddy. Ben corrects him, saying, that's not me, I'm Forearms. And as he's running with these kids and the roller coaster is breaking down, the kid is saying, you can get in trouble for never being off Handy Buddy. And Ben, of course, says, sue me. And I'm saying, bitch, he's saving your life. Don't criticize him. He could have left you there, but he saved you, for crying out loud. Be thankful, for crying out loud, you little ingrateful bastard. I'm sorry, I'm swearing. I try not to swear in these. I really don't. I do let out the occasional swear word, but I don't try and go far. But this is dumb. It is actually dumb for some reason. And it's little things. Just these little things throughout the episode that irk me. And again, if you like this episode, more power to you. I love this show, and I would like to know why you like the episode. I don't. And this is one of the reasons why. For some reason, there is just stupid decisions. Ben's acting like a complete moron. The twist is dumb. And no one seems to even realize that and everyone seems to confuse Ben's aliens for these heroes, and for some reason, everyone seems to be ungrateful for it. And here's another thing. This is just kind of another pet peeve of mine, but it's not, and this isn't really something inherently wrong with the episode, but it is something that kind of gets under my skin a little. In this case, it's the identity of Kangaroo Commando himself. I mentioned last week that this episode brought up a question in the Ben 10 universe, and for me, that question is, was Ben Earth's first superhero? Like, I know there might have been other superheroes before Ben. There were the plumbers, and we see there are some pretty and we even see in other shows that there were some pretty good ones. And we met the Galactic Enforcers in season 2, but was Ben Earth's first superhero? Because they say Abel North is an actor, and he just did all this stuff as a role. But he has the functioning gear, he has the suit, He knows how to use it very effectively, mind you. He has gadgets for all these various occasions, and he actually does save lives. Okay, yeah, it was set up by him and his brother, which admittedly he says was what he does admit was going too far, even though he went with it. But even though he went with it, so clearly there's animosity. Seriously, I'm sorry, I'm gonna get angry again, but he was Kangaroo Commando a superhero? And this is not, and they don't go really into full detail. For the most part, they do kind of state with he's an actor and they use effects, but they have all this stuff. They use it effectively, and they actually can, and he actually is trained in it, and he even uses it to save lives. He could have been a superhero. He even is in character when he saves the people, and when Ben suggested they do a team up, he says he tried it once, and he could easily be talking about that maybe he was on the show, or maybe he actually did it with a guy called Marsupial Man, which is just kind of weird. What? So my big question is, was Ben the Earth's first superhero in this universe? Because I'm kind of slightly confused. Like, I think the guy was an actor, but he seems to have all this functioning stuff, which doesn't seem to be effects. And and in other shows we see that there were other superheroes, so I don't really get it. And I don't know if the episode really explains it that well. Speaking of explaining well, I think another thing I dislike is the villain's motivation, which is just dumb. In some cases you can say he's crazy, which he probably is, but Kane's motivation for going after his brother is his brother stole all the glory even though he did all the stuff. When he goes after Tim Dean, it's because Tim Dean made his effing cartoon. Why would you care? Sue him. Get a lawyer, bring him to court, get evidence, and sue him. It is a very logical thing. In fact, I just realized that. Sue your brother too. Sue for half your copyright. Don't go full-on supervillain. Sue them. Get a lawyer and sue them. Get what's rightfully yours and sue. I cannot stress this enough. I really cannot stress this enough. I'm sorry. I'm really going off on a tangent. It's just because this episode hits, and I know hits all these just weird, wrong buttons for me. The plot, I think, is dumb. Ben, I think, acts too much like a fanboy. The villain, The villain, out of nowhere, and motivation is weak. Even for a kid's cartoon supervillain. And there are other villains in this show whose motivations aren't very clearly explained, but they still have a factor to them. Dr. Animo, despite the fact that he's a crazy scientist whose motivation is also weak, is very entertaining. And with the lengths he goes to, it is very, for just these minimal things, it really is kind of entertaining to see where he'll go. And then when it comes down to Kevin, he's a bratty kid, or Rojo, bad girl, charmcaster, sick psychopath, sociopath, magical sadist. It's real magical sadist with impressive powers, but really, my biggest thing is for them is power. This guy just needed to get a lawyer, and then the stuff with Ben getting ripped off and even getting confused is just kind of annoying. And then for just being blown aside at the end is just really dumb. It's really just, I'm sorry. I know these things just annoyed me when I watched the episode. They actively annoyed me. And it just impeded me. And I don't want to hate the episode. I don't hate it. I don't think I hate a single episode of this series. But I didn't like this episode. I really didn't like it. I think I might have said that if I ever liked the Galactic Enforcers or something, and if I did, then that makes this 2 episodes, because that's kind of the strange thing. Both episodes that feature other superheroes in the Ben 10 universe, I didn't like, because for the Galactic Enforcers, they're just too by the book. For Kangaroo Commando, just a bunch of dumb plot stuff. So now I know what you're thinking. Was there anything that I liked? Well, again, Josh Keaton as the animator. What was his name? Tim Dean, yes. That he was entertaining. The action scenes were still fun, especially the scene where Ben was saving Abel and Tim from being dropped in a vat of acid, chemicals, as Kane is it's in a warehouse full of effects. Kane is in the central control hub, and of course Ben has to work his way through all of these things, and there's traps everywhere. It is pretty amazing. It is pretty fun, especially with him using Wildvine's powers to its fullest. Hold on, dog. Sorry, dog, out my door. So there is some. And so, yes, the action scenes are nice, especially because there's a fight scene between Ben and Kangaroo Commando after Ben ruins a stunt show, which is actually which actually is pretty amusing. I will admit that there is still some funny humor with Ben and making mistakes or some of that. And again, Josh Keaton as Tim Dean. Some of the jokes are funny, and as always, I think the action scenes are still fun and very creative. So, yeah, those are things I liked. I just think the plot's dumb. Ben was being dumb. The villain is dumb. The conflict was dumb. Overall, dumb episode. And if you disagree with me, please explain why. I would love to know. Just don't be angry. I beg you. I'm just here for my opinion, and I would gladly like to hear yours. So, yeah, my dog's been scratching on my door for about the past minute, so I should probably let him in, and I really don't have anything else to say about this, so, yeah. Thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson. I hope you don't hate me for disliking this episode, and tune in next week where we look at another episode that adds to this season's plot. So, yeah, another long vlog, and again, thank you for watching. Samuel Johnson. See you next week. Take care. I'll be there in a minute.